All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're totally demystifying the timeline and the physiological course of an HIV infection inside the human body. We hear a lot about HIV and AIDS in the abstract, right? But today, we're going to look under the microscopic hood and map out exactly how this virus behaves over time.
So what actually happens during the decades-long battle between the human immune system and the human immunodeficiency virus? Well, it helps to frame this infection as a slow, years-long war of attrition. We're talking about a highly specialized viral invader squaring off against our body's most advanced defense systems. It's definitely not a quick skirmish. It's a prolonged, decades-long battle with very distinct phases, shifting momentums, and catastrophic turning points.
To map this all out, here's our roadmap for the explainer. We'll start with the invader and infection, move into the acute phase, look at the silent war of latency, cross the threshold into AIDS, and finally, talk about halting the progression.
Let's kick things off with part 1, the invader and infection.
Now, right here is basically our primary battlefield map. It's showing the typical clinical course of an untreated infection. And I want you to kind of keep this image in the back of your mind as we go. Notice that blue line? That represents our immune strength, specifically our CD4 plus T lymphocyte count. A healthy count starts way up high. Then you've got the red line, which is the viral load, or basically how many copies of the virus are swimming around in the blood. Honestly, this whole story essentially boils down to the push and pull between this blue line and this red line over time.
So, to understand exactly why that red viral load line starts climbing, we need to look at the virus's attack strategy. HIV doesn't just go after any random cell. It specifically hunts down cells carrying a surface protein called CD4. It literally uses its own envelope proteins to grab onto that CD4 receptor, grabs a co-receptor like CCR5, and just fuses its membrane right with the host cell. And once it's inside, it does something pretty terrifying. It uses an enzyme called reverse transcriptase to convert its viral RNA into DNA and then sneaks it right into the host's own genome. The cell's instruction manual is permanently hacked.
And you can see that whole life cycle playing out here. The T helper cell, which remember, is supposed to be one of the top generals in our immune system, gets fundamentally compromised. Its genetic code is overwritten, turning it into a hijacked factory. So instead of fighting off disease, this cell is now forced to read the viral DNA, build new viral proteins, assemble them, and literally butt off fully mature, highly infectious HIV particles that go on to attack the next cell.
Which brings us to part 2, the acute phase.
This is the very first stage right after infection, covering roughly the first 0 to 12 weeks. In this primary window, the virus is just rapidly replicating and spreading all throughout the body's lymphoid organs. That causes a massive spike in that red viral load line, which often triggers some really severe flu-like symptoms. And right alongside that, the blue CD4 count absolutely plummets as those cells are hijacked and destroyed. But hey, the body doesn't just give up. It mounts a desperate first counterattack, successfully driving that viral load back down and letting the CD4 count recover a bit, though unfortunately it almost never gets back to its original pre-infection strength.
All right, moving on to part 3, the silent war, also known as latency. After that initial chaotic skirmish, we enter this really fascinating multi-year phase that presents a stark biological contrast. While the acute phase is all about explosive viral replication, clinical latency is deceptively stable. Viral reproduction drops way down to establish a low set point. And during this time, the infected person might feel totally fine. I mean, absolutely zero visible symptoms.
But as you can see, looking at years 1 through 8 on this timeline, that stability is a total illusion. Check out the slow, steady downward slope of that blue line. Year after year, even though the patient feels completely fine on the outside, the virus is relentlessly chipping away at the foundation of the immune system, steadily depleting those CD4 plus T cells.
In this continuous decline of our immune generals, it's a massive multi-front assault. HIV destroys CD4 cells through direct viral cytopathic effects, which is essentially just bursting the cell open as new virions are produced. It also triggers apoptosis, meaning the infected cell is programmed to just destroy itself. And perhaps most tragically, the immune system actually recognizes its own infected CD4 cells and starts attacking them, in a process called immune-mediated killing.
And that leads us to part 4, crossing the threshold into AIDS.
Without medical intervention, this slow immune decline eventually hits a devastating critical mass. That breaking point is exactly 200.
Now, a normal healthy CD4 count is usually somewhere between 500 and 1500 cells per cubic millimeter of blood. But once that slow decline crosses below the 200 mark, the immune system is officially considered severely compromised. This right here is the diagnostic threshold where the HIV infection formally progresses to acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or AIDS.
At this advanced stage, the wildest part is that the immediate danger isn't actually the HIV virus itself. Because the immune system is so thoroughly depleted, the body is left completely defenseless against severe opportunistic illnesses. We're talking about everyday pathogens, standard bacteria, common fungi, and even specific cancers that a normal immune system would brush off without breaking a sweat. But now, they take the opportunity of a lowered defense to cause life-threatening diseases.
And you can see the catastrophic climax of an untreated infection right here. That blue line of immune defense essentially flatlines. It just hit zero. With the whole system destroyed, the red line of viral load skyrockets completely unchecked. Historically, this was the final immune collapse that led to death.
But thankfully, we have part 5, halting the progression.
Because the historical, untreated course is absolutely no longer the inevitable ending. Antiretroviral therapy, or ART, is a literal triumph of molecular biology. It uses a combo of medications to target those highly specific steps of the viral life cycle we talked about earlier. Remember attachment, fusion, and integration? Well, now we have entry inhibitors that block that CD4 attachment. We've got reverse transcriptase inhibitors to stop the RNA to DNA conversion. Integrase inhibitors block it from entering the host genome. And protease inhibitors stop new virions from assembling. By combining all of these, ART literally freezes the progression of the virus right in its tracks.
The results of this therapy are honestly staggering. If someone starts it before significant disease progression, our ART suppresses the viral load to such incredibly low levels that it's actually undetectable in blood tests. This halts the destruction of CD4 cells, lets the immune system recover, and restores a standard life expectancy. Even more profoundly, and you might have heard this from major global health campaigns, undetectable equals untransmittable, meaning an HIV-positive person with an undetectable viral load has effectively zero risk of sexually transmitting the virus to others. We have literally broken the chain.
So, as we celebrate turning a once fatal progression into a highly manageable condition, it really makes you think, if medical science can freeze this viral timeline indefinitely, what future molecular breakthroughs will it take to actually rewind it, eradicate the virus from the host genome entirely, and finally cure it for good?